And welcome everybody to another episode of Mac Yak, number 19 for April 11th, 2019. We got two special guests with us tonight. Wendy and Ryan are going to be talking about some graphic stuff tonight. So we'll have some fun with them. So everybody say hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Hello.
All right.
Hello.
So how's everybody doing and what's up, guys? Hopefully we'll have a good show for you tonight.
I'm going to turn that right back on you. What have you been up to this afternoon?
I just picked up a 2X serves with a RAID full of 750 gigabyte hard drive, so 10.5 terabytes of storage in the RAID.
And have you already notified your wife that her office will be housing them?
No, I have not.
So you admit it.
So,
anyways, I have it sitting over here right beside me, but after the show tonight, I plan on tearing it up and looking inside of it and seeing what's what with it.
Nice.
But I did verify that it does have all Apple branded drives in it.
Nice.
Which is nice. So there we go.
Yeah. Hey, Londo's is saying the same thing Wendy was saying. Like, Rocky, that beard, damn.
We're the opposite.
Well, and I'm going to say before you shave it, you got to put the little tiny flowers and take a picture. Have you seen that?
There you go.
Have you seen that?
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's trending. Got to do it.
I've seen it on
Put
Pinterest.
the little flowers in the beard and everything.
Yeah, with the beard and glitter and stuff. Yeah.
No,
There you
you know
go.
what he needs to do? He needs to dye it rainbow colored.
I like that idea.
Unicorn beard.
I like that idea.
That way he could say a unicorn sneezed on him or something.
I'll let my daughter just have at it, and she can do whatever.
Yes.
Careful what you wish for.
Oh, we're starting off good tonight.
You can braid it and go
Well, as long as he doesn't look like the Duck Dynasty guys where the beard's like down.
Oh, dear
here.
Lord, no.
Or ZZ Top.
ZZ Top, yeah.
I'm not thinking Duck Dynasty. I'm thinking that show, the Vikings.
Game of Thrones?
No,
Vikings.
Vikings.
Oh,
It's a different
I've
show.
never seen that one.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you have to. Okay.
Well, is that one's on Showtime, I think, isn't it? Or I don't know.
It started again.
Well, Game of Thrones starts this weekend, so the last season.
I can only watch it hidden in the closet because my son wants to see everything I'm watching. So I'm watching it on my phone like this, and everybody's hiding.
Well, they've gotten actually a little bit decenter as the seasons went. The first season was raunchy. Yeah, the first season was raunchy, and then it just got. I guess.
After you bring that server home, your wife might get some ideas for torture watching that show. Maybe that's not a good idea.
Well, you tell Jay he has to keep his in the basement, though, right?
That's fine. Yeah,
Stuff is in the basement.
it's okay. As long as I have a little path to the washing machine, we're all good.
Yeah, and just to let our viewers know that Wendy and Jay are in the same house. They're in two separate rooms on two separate phones, so
Yeah.
So I can easily get up and go over there and slap him upside the head.
We're looking forward to that.
What? I'll be right back, guys.
All right, guys. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go. We already did our welcome. Okay, I could throw this in here. We just welcome our guests, Wendy of Exact. Is that how you say it? Exact Creative, and Ryan of Lupe Creative. Loop. Okay, Loop.
Yep.
Come on, dude.
Damn, I'm screwing it all up. Hey,
He's like my Mexican wife, Lupe.
so we want to welcome our guests tonight. We were planning on doing this 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
However, both of them mysteriously got sick at the same time.
We had a creative disease.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they lived like thousands of miles apart, so I don't know how that happened.
I sent him an
I
email.
know
It had a
nothing.
virus in it.
An envelope shows up with a big lipstick mark on it.
And a white powdery substance.
Yep. And then the week after that, April 4th, Ryan was unavailable. And it turned out that Wendy and our kid was still sick. And this week I decided to be sick, but I'm over it. So
You felt left out.
yeah,
Well, he
I
had
did feel
the
left out. Yeah,
he had the man version of it.
I had the
Yeah.
man flu. Yeah, I did.
Like Jacob was totally like taking it more than Jay was. He was like complaining less.
All right, guys. Well, tell you what, the floor is going to be your guys right now. So, Wendy and Ryan, take it. Have at it.
The subject or the topic is the evolution of design on the Mac, and I have been working with Photoshop. Well, not even working, messing around with Photoshop since version 3. Ever since I stole it, borrowed it, took it from my high
Appropriated it.
school, and doing basic stuff. Weird photoshopping and some basic website stuff, and I use maybe 1% of whatever Photoshop has to offer in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be fun to hear from people that actually use this for a living, how it was using their products, which is in this case mostly Adobe stuff and maybe some Quark, back in the day versus now. And I know Steve has some creative input on this as well. So just curious to see how it has transformed over the years. Was it better back then? Was it better in OS 9? Was it better on a Power PC? Is it bloatware today that barely works? Let's hear it.
Well, I think that there's some good and bad as it evolved. I think that in the early versions, it was just very rudimentary stuff. I mean, really basic stuff, and
Like
just enough to do
make
some
black and white.
typesetting and some basic late page layout. Page Maker was one of my first programs. All this freehand was one of the first programs I used. Things have come a long way since then. You can do so much more. Now, when you get into thinking about bloatware, absolutely. There's a lot of crap out there that I don't use, but some people may. And that's something we'll probably talk about later. The way I use Photoshop and the way Wendy uses Photoshop, probably way different in our styles. We may get to the same result, but we may use different tools to get to that point. And that's why it's hard to pair out some of that stuff and just call it bloatware because we may use the tool a little bit different. But I think overall, yes, it is bloated these days. But the progress has been amazing. It's been fun to see actually. And why Wendy, why did you start using the Mac?
I started using the Mac in mid 1991, and I had that little Mac in the corner that nobody wanted because I was an intern.
Was it the
And
SE?
the LC2
Oh yeah.
something,
My
yeah.
first computer was an LC.
Yeah, and it was really Quark was like the main thing we used at it because it was an advertising agency, so we did a lot of heavy typesetting. So it was just it was funny. Even then, it was really progressing because in art school, there was a lot of art, real art, but in the advertising agency, it really wasn't what they were teaching in the art school at all. It was completely different. So we started out by just typing whatever I had to type, and then they would take it and cut it up with the X-Acto blade, and then they would put it up on the board to, hey, why don't we actually put the sentences together so that it we could just take the block of copy and put it on, close the leading up. They were actually I was actually reading somewhere that they suggested that the PostScript, PageMaker, and the LaserWriter is actually responsible for the whole publishing industry because it really brought together all of the fonts and everything that people were actually really used in real life, not those block fonts like from the 1800
From
newspaper,
Windows.
right from Windows, exactly. So
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard desktop publishing, I was like, "What? What are we doing?" And I
right.
spent 2 years at a ad agency doing that cut up, paste up stuff, and that was my job. I ran it through the waxer and put it down on those sheets, and had to roll it out. And then they were talking about, "Oh, we can set this type on a computer." I'm like, "What? You don't have to use a typesetting machine? This is so revolutionary." And so,
Yeah.
things have changed a lot over the years. But, the reason I think one of the topics, kind of looking at the overall outline we had, one of the topics is why do we use a Mac instead of a PC? Well, for us, at least where the software I used was all available on Mac before it was available on PC a couple
Yeah.
years before. And so that's just where my comfort level started, and that's why I kind of stuck with it. And I think today you could probably cross over and use a PC for a lot of things and not lose
Blasphemy.
much in the process. But my comfort level is definitely with the Mac. I like using it. I'm not a programmer. I don't want to try to program stuff. I don't want to try to set different settings. I just want to use my Mac and go.
Well, I was a freelancer for a lot of different years, and I worked for an agency that they would send me to a lot of different places, and so I had a lot of different setups. It was around when that worm
Oh
virus,
yes.
right? So they figure out well, I heard what the worm virus and how it started and how to avoid it. So like every time I go to a new agency, I'm like, oh, I see you have the worm virus. Let me fix this for you. Like fix it. But I wind up going to a lot of different platforms. One week and the next week goes another platform, and there's sometimes that I was actually on a PC, and even though it took me a couple times to figure out where everything was, the app actually worked the same. So I mean, now everybody's like, it. I mean, yeah, it looks nicer, and I don't know, desktop wise, and I might melt if I use a PC. But
Yeah.
10 years. 10 years we've been married, and you find out your wife used the PC back in the day.
She was cheating on you.
for an entire week.
Uh-huh. What about you,
Yeah.
Steve?
Well, my father was a graphic designer for many years, and he recently retired, so he doesn't have to keep up as much as he used to back in the day. But with him, he started with the Macintosh SE. So he actually went to training to learn how to use desktop publishing software. I think it was an early version of Quark. He couldn't remember when I talked to him, but he started learning it on a Mac SE, and it was the small 9-inch black and white screen. So
Yeah,
that's
it
not
was.
not really the best way to learn a layout program. But he ended up getting a Macintosh 2CX a few years later to do some work at home. And so he got, I mean, we found the receipt for it years later. His company paid for it because they needed a machine for him to work at home. But it was like $13,000 because he had the
Yeah.
computer, the color monitor, the color graphics card, the color printer, the dust covers, all that stuff. And that was the workhorse that he used. And, he had Photoshop version 2. He had freehand on there. He had Quark, of course. And then, that lasted for a long time. He got a Power Mac in the 90s, and he had all the Macromedia apps on there and such. And it's, listening to him talk about that, he was always complaining about early on because they had to share files with PC users. And back in the mid 90s, the network and the connectivity between PCs and Macs wasn't always the best, and you get files
Yeah.
without the resource fork, so the Mac could read what a JPEG was, and you had to convert things and everything. But what he kept mentioning as I was talking to him was the zip disk, which was
Oh yeah.
instrumental for his department because he would
Yeah.
work in New York and he'd come home and he'd transfer files, and that was 100 megs, right on a disk. That was pretty much unheard of a few years earlier, unless you had a big SideQuest disk. But that's how he managed to work, from home if he needed to finish up something, and he was just able to, really work on this stuff. Doesn't matter where he was, he'd bring home the work on a big disk. But as far as my personal experience, I sort of shadowed him a lot and learned as much as I could. But when I went to school for this commercial art type stuff, unfortunately, we had PCs, and it was sort of like a rude awakening for me because here I was being spoiled on a Mac at home, and then we had these like crummy Pentium 2 gateways at my school, and you load up Photoshop 6 and it would like chug along and not really do anything. Then they upgrade us to 7 and it kind of worked. And the heel brush, ooh, it's new, So it's been interesting to see, the evolution of the software. But, back in the day, not all of the software versions were equal. You'd have features that were only on the Mac first or the Windows first. It was just like they couldn't develop it. They couldn't make it equal. That's why they had so many versions back then. It was like Photoshop 5, Photoshop 5.5,
Yeah.
and they were trying to keep up with each other. And today it's like you don't even have to worry about it. They're on the same platform. They're on an x86, platform. So it's not like they're coding for Intel versus PowerPC or anything. So I think they're able to make things more seamless. But
Right.
I think it was a bigger deal back in the day, especially with typefaces, with CMYK coloring and everything.
Yeah.
Today,
Oh yeah, absolutely. The typefaces was probably one
yeah,
of the worst things that we had to go through. I actually recall one of my printers getting upset at me because I used four typefaces, and it was like, I was like, "What are you using four typefaces?" I mean, what? And she was like, livid, yelling at me, and it's true what you said. It's as far as compatibility to the PC back then, it just was not seamless. I mean, even now there's a couple of issues, but I mean, not nearly as bad as it was, and Photoshop, you're right. As everything your dad said is issues and all that. But I'm not happy with the way that it all of Adobe has gone now with it's doing a lot of different things, but it seems like they're not cohesive with each other. Like
yeah.
the commands are different for InDesign than it is for Illustrator than it is for Photoshop,
Or they
and I
change them and you can't change them back.
Well, the
like
scale
I
tool
call it,
in
it's not
Illustrator and
it's
Photoshop
not
are
that
different.
it's not that
Yeah,
they're changing. Yeah, it's the command. So when you're and you're doing the commands, like the command for something is whatever this keyboard, and you push, and all of a sudden you go to the next program, and then you have to remember, oh,
yeah,
for this one it's different, so I have to do this and
yeah.
this and that,
Well,
and
they
actually
just
slows you
recently
down.
changed the undo states for that. So now instead of Command Alt Z, it's just Command Z, and there's no way to, from I figured out, how to change that back to the old way
Dude,
because for
Photoshop
years you're
CC
used to that.
2019 is messing me up. Every time I
Yep,
resize
that's it.
something, I hold down Shift because for
Right.
the last
Exactly. That's
two
another way. Yeah.
decades, that means
Yeah,
proportional resize, and
and
now
that is just a really recent development with Adobe
yeah.
that they're changing these shortcuts and and tools to be different in each program. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, at least have a preference to change it back.
Right.
Well, I can trying to be. I can understand trying to be innovative and try to make things go forward, but it seems like every department is in their own building, and it's like the Photoshop people are not talking to the InDesign people. It's like, hey, we're going to decide to make Shift something that explodes the document or whatever. So it's and it is. Who remembers the Cork had the little alien guy that would come in.
Yes.
I don't remember because I never
so,
used it.
so and Cork, there was this certain key. I think it was almost. I think in the delete keys, but except for you hit an extra key, and this little tiny alien would come out. It would walk across your screen, and it would shoot like your text box, and it would. But if you did it more than three times, a spaceship would come
I
and
remember
it
the
would
spaceship.
explode.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And the funny thing is, I discovered this. I was working really late. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was trying to delete this. And all of a sudden, like the alien came out, and I'm like, nobody's gonna effing believe me when I tell them that this alien came out.
Yeah,
And
one thing that I think hurt, sort of the Mac, at least for a Quark, was when they were doing the transition, to
Oh yeah.
PowerPC, that was fine. But when they switched to OS 10, Quark had a big problem, upgrading their software, and I think they lost a
They
lot of
took over
users
a
to either
year.
InDesign or yeah. Because my dad, for the longest time, was running Quark on Classic, or he'd have to reboot. because it just wasn't stable on OS 10, or even the preview versions weren't. And the last thing I just want to mention before I forget is, since you started, if you started working on desktop publishing with the Mac when it was in its, everything was brand new, you stuck with what you knew, so that's why he still has a Mac to this day, and he's not willing to touch anything PC because he's used a Mac, since the late 80s. And,
definitely a comfort thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So everyone has their own preference, but, that's what he told me.
Well, I remember back in the early 90s, 92, 93, when Apple wasn't doing so well, and I was working in-house art, and we were trying to make the decision what to do about some new computers, because we had some really old computers that were just chugging along. And my boss at the time was really worried about buying Apple stuff because Apple wasn't looking very good. So they were toying with the idea of going to PC, and we talked. And at that point, that's when you had to output or take your file that you had, and you had to send it to output. You had to send it for film, and then we got film back, and we had to inspect our film, and that went to the printer. Well, our output people were all Mac based. So they were like, well, you can't use us if you go to PC because of all the compatibility issues you mentioned earlier. The fonts, maybe the files going to go wonky on you. So they wanted us to stay in the same area, with the Mac. So we ended up buying new Macs, and Apple, of course, came back. I told my wife at the time, I was like, we need to throw all our money in Apple right now because it's $5 a share. She was like, no, we've got $5,000 to our name. And I always remind her, we'd be millionaires now. But anyway, but yeah, you kind of stick with what you know. You kind of stuck with the industry standard. You get into an industry standard, it's hard to break away from. So switching to PC was a big thing at one point or another. Now, today, like I said, it may not be that big of a deal, but back then it would have been a huge commitment. Plus, you would have had to buy all the new software. It wasn't just downloading a new subscription or canceling your one for the Mac and downloading the PC version. You have to rebuy everything. So that was a huge expense.
And that kind of brings me to a follow-up point. Is Mac still the obvious choice when it comes to the work you guys do? I mean, I can do what I do. What is that?
What is that?
What is that?
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know.
Jacob is watching something.
Sound like some.
He's actually sitting behind me because I'm not paying attention with the iPad and the iPhone at the same time, watching two different shows.
Yeah, he's definitely a variety then.
See?
So, Jay, you asked that question about is Mac still the industry standard? And so I talked to a guy I know that works at a big ad agency here in town. He's the accountant there. And I said, why do you guys stick with Mac? And he said, because it lasts. It's easy to network, it's easy to deal with, and it lasts. We can keep a Mac a lot longer than we can keep our PCs. Our PCs are a couple years and we're turning them over. We can have a Mac in-house for 5 years before we have to turn it over. And even then we can sell it and get money out of it. So it's a big part of the longevity of the Mac, being able to stick around a long time, it helps people out. So I think that, and I sold I didn't even sell it. I just sent it to Jay. My old Mac I had for 10 years. I used it. So,
yep. And you used that Mac with
I did every day.
In it. This guy used a 2009 Mac Pro for almost a decade with the stock. Well, you did have 12 gigs of RAM. Spinning hard drive, stock GT120 graphics card, and that's it. So that does goes to show that it is built to last. It'll last you a while.
Oh yeah, I use that thing and I don't remember. You remember the uptime on that? That was a lot of uptime on that computer.
What is Wendy laughing at?
I remember, just to echo your statements, the machine's lasting longer, I think is absolutely true. My dad started out with the 2CX, and then the next machine he got years later was a 7500, and years after that was a G4 AGP, which lasted years after that was a 2007 iMac, which he still uses. So I mean, you could definitely, run those machines much longer, I'd say, than a PC. Sure, it's not going to be as fast, but
Right.
I guess you could upgrade a PC maybe. But if you're looking at like a business who's not really going to do that, I think the machines last pretty long. I mean, that at least the older ones. I can't say much about the
the older
soldered stuff
ones.
these days.
Well, yeah.
I would
So
say the older ones.
from a
Anything
financial
2012 and older.
and investment standpoint, then Mac would still be the obvious choice. But do any of you use Windows with these
Yes.
tools? Do you know?
Oh, what those tools? No.
Yeah,
I do.
because I've used Photoshop on a PC back in high school because certain labs were cheap and all they had was PC.
Well,
And
I'm cheap.
it sucks. It had the same features. It had the same keyboard commands, only you would replace the Apple key with the Windows key and all that. But it still
the control,
sucked.
yeah.
Well,
It didn't
I'm
work
cheap,
as
so
well.
I use GIMP.
Right.
I'm cheap.
Well,
I use GIMP.
actually, my dad's a photographer, and he started out on Element 7 or something like that. And I ended up with a copy of his Elements, and he showed me the basics of it. I just started taking it, using it. Then we went to CS3, and I used that all through high school. And then hopped into CS5 towards the end of high school. And I've been on CS5 on both PC and Mac since. And honestly, after around CS2, it seemed to be about the same.
Yeah.
I'm too afraid to really hop into the later Photoshops because, number one, I like to actually not have to pay a subscription and stuff to use them. And I'm just really used to them. Some of the commands actually are different between PC and Mac, but you hit the wrong key a few times, and you instantly think, "Oh yeah, I'm on the other system." So
Yeah.
yeah,
I do. My stuff is very basic compared to these guys. But is Jacob singing?
He's eating.
Okay. So if I fire up the iMac with OS 9 on it, I can boot up the computer, Photoshop CS6, and be up and running faster before the latest Photoshop even starts on the latest Intel Mac. That's how bloated it has become. And you sit still for 5 seconds, all these tool tips start popping up that you can't turn off, and if compatibility was not an issue, would you guys still work with the latest available today? Or would you say, screw this, I'm going back to my G5 or early Intel with whatever your favorite Photoshop version was, or Illustrator, or whatever?
Well, I still can work faster today than I did then, even given all the bloat and everything. I can still work faster and more efficiently today. It's just easier to do things. There's better commands to do things. I can get through it a lot quicker. Um, I don't know. Photoshop 4 for me was, I liked Photoshop 4. So I really enjoyed it. I thought I was pretty efficient at that, but I can work a lot faster today than I could then.
Yeah, and I think the performance, just like handling larger files and things like that, obviously is better today. Echoing Greg's comments about CS2, yeah, the only reason I upgraded to CS3 was it was Intel native. It wasn't no longer a PowerPC emulation, on a newer Mac. So really, if you are dealing with large files and stuff like that, yeah, I'd say it's better these days. But if you still need to like open up a photo, resize it, and stuff like that, you could get by on the older systems, within limitations of file formats and things like that, which are really the bottlenecks. But the problem with working and doing this job, graphic design stuff for a living, you have to have the latest and greatest software so you're compatible with everybody else, because you never know what they're going to have. And so that's, always the game you had to play with Adobe of upgrading, or, with their subscription stuff these days.
Yeah,
There's two people now that mentioned CS2, and I think it was CS2 or the first version of CS, I don't remember that, introduced version queue, which was an absolute disaster on the Mac because it would just hog every resource it could find until you finally disabled it. So I don't know if that was still an issue with.
Yeah, that was like
I think
a
it really
metadata
depends
thing,
on
right?
how. It used to be where you can assign how much RAM each app was going to take, and
Okay.
they took that away. So it was like if you're like a heavy Photoshop. I mean, I use a lot of Photoshop, and then I started using a lot of Illustrator only because the files were so much easier to like deal with than
Hmm. Yeah, much
being that
smaller.
it's
Yeah, a vector file.
it's vector file, so it doesn't have as many things to deal with. But I don't know, it depends. I guess I remember when the clones came out and they worked. I actually bought for my company. I actually set up 4 clones and they actually worked really well.
Nice. What brand were they?
Yeah, until they
E
took
machines.
yeah.
Oh wow.
oh
Yeah, I have a power computing one here myself, and it's a
Oh
rock
yeah.
solid machine.
We got just
I
reading
was
up on the
wondering if there was
comments.
still
We
any of
have
those are still around.
Yeah,
Dana saying in the 90s I used PageMaker and Quark about 50-50. Freehand was always easier than Illustrator to use.
Yeah, I liked
That is before
freehand.
my time.
I liked freehand a lot, and then I don't know. Once I got used to Illustrator, I took a hold to it.
Like
Yeah, I never was that big into PageMaker. I did not like PageMaker all that much, so I was a Quark guy. And like you said, when they kind of fumbled through that whole deal, I stuck with them and stuck with them, and finally, the company I was doing some work for went to InDesign. I painfully took that turn, and um, it's hard when you're used to something to get
oh,
used to something
definitely.
new. And but I'm glad I did. I mean, it was definitely the way to go. And I still get emails all the time because I had 2 different accounts with Quark. I still get emails all the time. Come back, do this, buy this.
I have a
No, I'm
question for
not
both.
going back to you. I'm
I
done.
kind of know Wendy's answer to this, but I want to ask Ryan too. What do you guys think about free software like GIMP?
I have not used GIMP. I've used what's the Photoshop one that's out?
Affinity?
Affinity, yeah.
yeah.
I actually like Affinity okay. Again, it's one of those industry standard things you kind of have to stick with. In the professional world, people want certain types of files, and sometimes they want that native file, and you're not able to give it if you don't have the right software.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
use
And
some of things
Affinity
like
is not
that, but
free,
that's what it
but
comes back to.
you pay for the product once because that's what I hate about the subscription model. Everybody's
I do
doing it,
too.
and I just want to buy the
Mm-hmm.
software and be done with it. I might have money this month and be broke next month, and then what? I only have
Exactly.
your product for a month? No, just let me pay for it once. Once I save up or do whatever I need to do,
So
I'll be
there's
done with it.
for me. There's good and bad in the subscription thing because I remember at one point we were talking about going from CS4 to 6. I think that's what I jumped from. Was I had CS4, I had to go to CS6 for just to stay ahead of the game, stay on top of it because I was getting files that I couldn't open. I was having to send them to people. Hey, can you open this? I probably bugged Wendy at 20 times. Hey, please open this and send me a file. So, you get to that point where you have to upgrade. So then you look at it and you're like, okay, I got to upgrade this whole thing. And the upgrade cost is $800.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember having a conversation with my wife. I'm like, okay, I have to upgrade Adobe and it's going to cost me like $800 to upgrade the whole suite. And she's like, are you kidding me? And yeah, I know it seems like a big thing, but I'll make it back. And of course you do. But the subscription rate, I mean, yeah, it gets old and I get it, but at least you're always just paying for it and you always have the latest and greatest. Now, the flip side of that is they upgrade stuff so rapidly and they change things so quickly that the command you just learned is no longer a command, and you have to relearn something. It drives me crazy.
I lost my settings a lot with that subscription when it first came out, which is annoying because you spend 20 minutes setting up your settings, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we upgraded. It's like, no.
That just happened to me when I downloaded the new Illustrator. I had everything set up, and I use Illustrator probably 70% of my day now. And that just happened to me. I opened it up after an update, and everything's changed. I'm like, oh no, here I go, having to reset all my palettes and all my stuff again, and it drives you crazy. But
well, as far as subscriptions, I mean, I think I'm thinking along with Jay there, because I mean, I'd rather pay once for a program and have it, and if I can use it for 5 years, I probably got way more than it's going to cost me to when it comes time to upgrade, especially if it keeps working and working and working.
But the problem is, as a graphic designer, you've got to keep buying it because you got to stay ahead of the game. You got to keep getting further ahead, so you don't.
I guess it depends on what it is.
If you're a regular person just doing your newsletter for your friends or whatever, doing your graphics for your YouTube video or whatever it is you're doing, opposed to having to compete with, I mean, both Ryan and I, we're self-employed and we're competing with ad agencies. We have to be on top of it technology-wise, or if not, they're going to be like, well, I don't want to work with this person because they can't keep up. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, because we've already been on this for 40 minutes, one quick question, and this is like 1 minute or less. When it comes to not designing on the Mac, but the design of the Mac, like you all go back to the LC days and all that. You've had your iMacs, your Mac Pros, your laptops. Ryan and Wendy, how do you feel about the design of the hardware? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten boring? Or has it gotten worse? What do you think?
So I think that from my standpoint, I remember when the resurgence of Apple, the Blueberry iMac came out, and I thought that was so exciting. I thought it was cool design. I thought it was different, I liked it. And I got those crazy MacBooks that came out, with the crazy colors and the crazy shape.
The iBook clamshells, yeah.
Yes, they were fantastic. But then they went through this lull. I thought it just kind of got mundane and boring. And really, the next one that I really even cared about the design was, yes, I love that. Yes. The next one that came out that I really was all that crazy about was the one in the case, like I sent you, Jay. Mine was the G4 at the time, I think.
Give me a few minutes.
The stainless steel looking case, I thought that was a pretty good design. Now, a lot of people like that round Mac Pro that came out, and
you won't find any lovers of that here.
I didn't think much of it, so
no.
We do like the Cube, though.
It has a very good nickname, and it fits it perfectly.
Trash Can Pro.
I personally, I agree with Ryan as far as all the cutesy stuff and the colors. It was really super awesome when it came out. And now all the steel and all that, it's cool. But I feel that I don't know. I don't need my Mac to be thinner. I don't need it. I need my ports. I need my, and I feel that it's become not practical anymore because everybody wants it to be thin or to be
form over function.
Move it. Yeah, and I hate it because I have like a bunch of stuff to like plug into my phone, and I have to wind up buying extra stuff, which may have been their idea to begin with, because now it's all about making money and not about making me happy. So it's
Wendy,
I feel a little screwed by that. So
and I can relate to this as well as you. Is your Mac is being held together by tape, right?
Yes.
So is mine. So because cleaning them is a pain in the butt.
I had nothing to do with that.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I know Wendy didn't open it.
Mine was also held together by tape when I had my 2013 iMac.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the 2012 and up, when they started with the thinner, like Wendy just said, the thinner iMacs. It just became impractical because you can't get in there and clean them. I cleaned mine out. It was disgusting in there. I mean, that was only a year.
I mean, that's
imagine.
why I don't have an iMac, and God forbid I will never have an iMac. I will keep using the Mac Pro as long as I can, but when I opened up Wendy's iMac to clean it out and to put fresh thermal paste on, it was a disaster in there. And that's why I left the tape on. I'm not going to spend $20 in adhesive strips only to do it a year from now, do it again to clean it out. I'm just leaving the tape on because, I need to keep that thing alive as long as possible. She makes a living off it.
And I took your advice, did the same exact thing. I got electrical tape holding my display screen on.
And your wife gave you crap about it.
She did. She sat there and told me about the resale.
Electrical tape. At least it's black. Mine is brown.
Yeah,
mine was blue.
Yeah, blue painter's tape. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, she gave me grief about it because she said about the resale value. And I told her, I says, well, I could just buy the $20 strips and you won't be able to tell that I opened it ever up again.
Yeah, when you're done.
What was that, like a 10-minute conversation? I remember walking in and going, what did you do?
Yeah. All right, guys.
I lost half of everybody.
Oh,
well,
you might have to just
about done with this topic.
We're still here.
We're still here.
Yeah, I just see a bunch of exclamation points.
Yeah, that's just FaceTime being FaceTime.
Yeah, I'm used to it. Most of you guys are exclamation points on this thing.
Yeah,
but Ryan, Wendy, thank you for your input. We're moving on to the next topic, but of course you can hang out if you want to.
Yep.
Yes, please do.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, the next topic was one we were going to have last week, but Grudy wasn't here. So we're going to talk about, I think Greg and I are probably both in agreement on this because this is a topic both of us wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
Is about baking your logic boards.
Oh, dear Lord.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy in one of the, I think it was Low End Mac, I think it was, where he posted, I'm going to bake my board and reflow the GPU. Well, for one, he's reflowing a GPU that's probably no good anyway, so it's stupid. And if you're going to reflow something, use a heat station where you can direct the heat onto the part that you want to reflow.
Yeah, basically what we're trying to debunk here is, and we're doing this for multiple reasons, including keeping Colin Mister sane, because he's been seeing these posts and they've been driving him crazy.
What are you talking about? That's how you and I met, Retke. That's how you and I met. I mean, I was going left to center, and you had to put me in check on it. So,
well, Colin is trying to put everyone in check that posts something about this, and
he's like, no.
Yeah, he's really, really. It really gets to him. In fact, I'm talking to a system to you guys on a system that he fixed because of, well, actually this GPU wasn't bad yet, but it was one of the failed ones. It was going to fail. So he fixed this perfectly. It works fine. I'm talking on an early 2008 MacBook Pro. But the debunking of all this stuff, reflowing and all this stuff, reflowing.
Well, before you get into that, for those who don't know, why would anyone reflow anything, especially in an oven?
Why would you need to?
It does. To be honest with you, reflowing is not a good idea, to be honest, to begin with, because one, solder is not going to mysteriously just get bad. The only thing that's going to happen is it's going to get corroded, yes, but reflowing is not going to fix that. It's basically you're just taking the corrosion and you're melting the solder, and it's still got the corrosion inside the solder. You just basically...
the idea is that if your graphics card or any other chip fails, one of the solder balls underneath it must be bad, so shoving it in the oven will magically flow that solder back into place. Right?
Yeah,
that's what they assume, though.
That's what they assume.
The issue that's actually wrong with those GPUs is there's a layer in between where the chip is, the actual silicon for the GPU's chip, and what connects to the board, that substrate board that's there. there actually the traces in there actually become cracked, and reflowing it then heats them back up, and they then actually reconnect.
Last for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a temporary fix, and only the 2011 is that viable, only for the fact that you can get it to temporary work enough to apply the patch.
Yeah, but here's the problem with baking the board, though. You're putting all the components on the board into a hot oven and heating up components that don't need to be heated up. For instance, capacitors do not like a lot of heat on them. Okay? So you're going to probably pop a few capacitors doing that.
There was 2 people within about a week span on low-end Mac that baked their boards, and they were both early 2008 MacBook Pros. And they said, hey, it started working again.
Yeah, for a week.
The problem was, it started working again, but their fans were running at max because they had melted their heat sensors.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt this, guys, but our guests have got to go. So everybody watching this, we put their links in the description. Check them out if you need any graphics work. And thank you guys for being here.
Yes, please. Thank you. It was great to have you guys.
Yes, thank you very much, you guys. It was great, and I hope to talk to you guys again. I'm here.
Bye, Ryan. Bye, Wendy.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Now we're going to lose all our viewers because Wendy's leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son's no longer trying to rip my shirt off, so sorry.
She's going to come back and smack
that show is later. It's a paid prescription.
Another
prescription. All right. Well, anyways, as far as the baking board, though, I strongly suggest the viewers out there, if you suspect you need to reflow something, do it with a heat station or something similar to that.
Use the proper tool.
Yes, exactly.
But the best thing to do, especially for these systems that have the 8600 MGT, like the early 2008s, is just to replace it with the better GPU. NVIDIA revised that chip. The problem with the old chip was, like Rocky said, the substrate was pulling apart. And if you would heat it up and reflow it, even though you're not really technically reflowing it, it would just kind of mash it back together, and it might work again for a while, but would eventually start pulling apart again. And the revision, the 603 revision, that substrate was changed. The formulation of it no longer pulls apart. It will never die again if you replace that GPU. And you can't do that with the 2011 Macs because AMD never made a revision of the chip. Those two also peel apart. But to temporarily fix it, even though I don't really recommend doing it, it's better to just kind of replace it or bypass it. Like on a MacBook, you can bypass the integrated GPU on the 2011s. Mm-hmm. But basically, if you need the computer because it's mission critical or something like that, you can reflow it. It's still not technically reflowing. The point of reflowing would be to redo those balls. The thing is, you're not actually doing anything to the balls because they never actually really get hot enough to actually have problems.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say, is that the temperatures that people tell you to bake it at, that is not nearly as hot enough to even melt the solder.
Even if the systems are running.
Well, if it's non-leaded solder, it's even a higher temperature.
And by the time you reach those temperatures in an oven, your temperature sensors and all kinds of crap will have melted along with it.
Yeah. And here's another problem too. Is if you have any moisture at all inside the board, okay,
you can popcorn it.
Exactly, and that will destroy. Basically, you might as well just throw it away then, because there's no fixing it if it popcorns. You might as well just toss it.
Yeah. Now there are.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
There are valid reasons for reflowing. I reflow stuff every day, all day. When there's corrosion around the backlight driver, I reflow it to see if the chip is still good or if something else is going on.
But you don't stick it in an oven.
No, I do not. I have a heat gun for that. So there is a time and a place for reflowing the proper way. But even after you reflow something, especially if it's work for a customer, like if it's my own machine, I reflow a component and it works. Cool, it works. If it's for a paying customer, like, oh, a reflow fixed it. I know this chip was the problem. Let me put a new one on. Because you're not going to reflow something that was corroded or detached and just send it on its way and collect the check for it.
Yeah.
So, but I have
there's
never used
some
an
repair
oven. I
shops
use
that
an
will do
oven,
that.
and not even anymore. I used to use an oven to dry boards after I ultrasonically cleaned them. Just stick it in the oven for 5 minutes at a very low temperature for the alcohol and the water to dissipate. But even that I don't do anymore. I don't use an oven at all,
Now,
except to bake cookies.
why don't you use an oven or some other? I mean, for example, let's throw in there. We're all familiar, or at least the majority of us are familiar with Louis Rossmann. He has a miniature oven, which is I can't remember the term for those,
Easy
but a
bake.
toaster oven. There we go. The toaster oven. He sets it to a very low setting to dry the the way for the board and to dry the board itself. So why, Jay, do you choose to not do that anymore, but yet someone like him does?
Because a few reasons. One, actually, I'll do number one last. I'm kind of going Star Wars style here. I kept setting boards on fire. You ultrasonic it, you dip it in alcohol, you rinse it out, then you let it dry for a second, you put it in the oven, and if your oven is not good, like mine is, then when you set it to 100, you always go over, and then that's when alcohol starts combusting. So I always had flame shooting out my oven. It never did any damage because the alcohol would burn off, and I would put it out before it did any damage. But it wasn't fun, and it kind of got on my nerves. So I stopped doing that, and I'm like, I have a compressor down in the basement where all the ultrasonic gear is. I'm figuring, let me just flip the nozzle on that. And now when I pull a board out of the alcohol, I blow it out with the compressor, and that dries the board pretty much instantly. That's how powerful that thing is. It blows the alcohol from underneath the processor everywhere. So it saves me a lot of power as well, not having to run an oven continuously to dry a board. And
Now,
it's a lot faster.
okay, now do you use an oven or some type of drying technique prior to working on boards? Because that's another thing that Lewis does to prevent popcorning. Is there a reason why you don't do that?
If you go after large chips, for example, Colin, he uses a board preheater because he has to heat a large area of the board for a long time before he can get that chip off. I go after components that are about this big. So I don't have to worry about popcorning or any of that. I put the heat gun on it, 2 seconds later the component comes off. So it's not I don't know why Rossmann does it. I don't know if he does it for small work like that or only for the big chips. But
Well, he doesn't do much as far as big chips anyways. He sends that to Paul anyway, so.
Yeah, Paul is his bitch.
I have a question, and maybe it's a bit naive. So you said, Greg, that the 8600M was the culprit on a lot of these machines for the 2011 model. What about some of the older ones?
2008 one.
Oh, okay. So what about like the 2007 non-unibody 17-inch that had the same GPU? Is that problematic as well?
Oh yeah, all of any of the 8600s that came out in a Mac, any of them, unless they got sent back to Apple for the recall and ended up with the revised chips, not many did. Basically, all of them are bad.
So is there
any
a
of them that
way?
have 602 on them? Is there a
Okay,
way to find out what it is?
that's what I was going to ask in System Profile or something.
No. You have to literally take the board out of the system and look at it physically. And if it says 602 on the chip, you've got one of the ones that will fail. And they all fail.
And what is the model of the good ones?
603.
Okay, that's good to know.
And Colin does have several of the newer GPUs, right?
And he loves doing it. It's his favorite repair.
At least that's what he
Serious.
says.
He loves fixing these systems.
At least that's what he says.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, just I mean, this is just a word of advice. Don't do it because you're going to cause more damage than what it's worth.
Yeah, I'll
Baking
admit,
is bad, okay?
Yeah. What I was trying to get at before I finished talking was, if you do have to do it, centralized heat up the chip, let it do its reflow, which isn't really reflowing it, but let it do it, but centralize it to that chip.
Mm-hmm.
It will work for a while, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. And, you know, it's still a hit or miss. It's still better to replace the chip or bypass it.
Yeah, so my in my naivete about working on these machines years ago, my cousin's 2011 MacBook had the issue of the graphics card, and I thought, oh, I'll just put it in the oven because I didn't have a heat gun.
Yeah.
Now it did work. I was very careful, and yeah, it was probably just dumb luck. But the problem is he had his hard drive encrypted in a way where I think it was tied to the hardware somehow. I don't know if it was FireVault or what he was using. But even if you rip the hard drive out, he wasn't able to do anything with it. So that was the last resort. And we were able to get the data off. But, it was, not something I would recommend. You want to do something, use the right tools. Don't be a dummy about it.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I'll admit myself that I've done it the wrong way in the past.
Well, we've seen you do it the wrong way a lot in your videos.
Oh,
That's how we learn.
That's right.
When
Yeah,
I
there
was
you go.
the Xbox 360 guy, I'd reflow and I'd do the towel trick and all this stuff just to get the system running again.
But
I
was
was
there
naive.
$60 controlled temperature from Lowe's.
Yeah. What was
That's
it?
what I've used.
Was there blood in that Xbox?
Oh,
Probably.
There was blood in almost every Xbox I ever repaired.
now also
Just
keep
like
in
opening
mind
up an 8100.
that not every board is equal. For example,
Yeah.
I can put a heat gun on a 2012 to 2014 MacBook Air board, and that thing, it's like magic. It absorbs heat so well that the solder never melts. I have to crank it and hold it on there for a lot longer than I'm comfortable with for the component I want off to actually come off. And then there's let's say the Xserve power supply that I've been working on. I point a heat gun at it, and it instantly starts popcorning. That's the first power supply I did. Is like, okay, this is not going to work with a heat gun, even at the lowest setting. It's popcorn like crazy right off the bat. So not every board is the same.
I'm glad you said that, Jay, because when I worked on the power supply board for the 2013 and when I worked on some later MacBook boards that were in the 2012, 2013 range, I thought I was going crazy that I couldn't get some of that solder to melt without applying some serious heat. So I don't feel so bad now.
Well, you're so crazy, but yeah.
Okay.
We won't get into that one.
Yeah, well.
Just
you were actually considering putting flowers and sparkles and rainbow colors in your beard. So, I mean,
Now,
that was
Greg,
the pre-show chat there.
Yeah.
Is there a list of the GPUs to look out for? Let's say we're buying a Mac secondhand. Is there like some sort of easy to follow list that you could post a link to or make something
I'd have
available?
to type one up.
we could put one.
Because I think that would be helpful.
The only thing you really have to stay away from is the 2011 series. I mean, the 2010s you could fix the graphics issues with a capacitor. The 2012s,
same thing with the 08s.
2012s had no graphics issues. The Retina models have bad soldering joints on some components that Apple tried to fix by putting a piece of rubber on it.
Oh yeah,
to smoosh it in the board, but that didn't work.
Goodness.
And that's really it. So if you stay away from the 2011s, unless you really want a 2011 for the processing power, and because the 17-inch 2011 is just sexy as hell, you can always use the Mux hat from Colin or that latest thing that he was working on to disable it in the firmware.
Software, it's software.
Yeah.
Well, no,
But
it's hardware.
You're writing the ROM.
Yeah.
You're basically
Yeah.
Now,
So
to be
the
clear,
2011 is
though,
the only one you can't fix unless you want to keep sending it to Colin for a new graphics chip.
And
That's
those
going to
are
break
the
anyway.
Radeon ones.
but we have to be careful, though. The 2011s, not all 2011s are bad, because now it is not
The
just
13-inch is
exactly.
the only one.
Yeah, and the 2011 iMacs, you can replace the graphics cards in
Yep.
those because they are removable.
You can just put in a
Right.
regular
Yeah, I didn't mention the
Dell
13-inch
Alienware
because no one in their
card.
right mind would go for a 13-inch 2011. You would get a 2012 13-inch.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
All right.
basically, the chips to worry about would be the HD 6000 and 5000 for some of them. The desktop ones seem to be all right, but the HD 6000 chips and the 8000 series chips for MacBooks, the desktop ones seem to be all right. Those would be a problem, and then there's many other Macs with many other chip problems, but a lot of them are pretty easy to fix. A lot of them even are removable and swappable because they were on cards. So really, basically, the early 2000, the mid '07 through early 2008 MacBook Pros, and the what is it, early 2011 and late 2011 MacBook Pros are going to be your problem systems. The '07 to '08 can be fixed with a GPU swap, and the other ones can be fixed by just bypassing it.
And that's
And
why
that's basically it.
everybody should just buy a cheese grater Mac Pro. If your graphics card fails, you just stick a new one in there.
Well, let's since you mentioned that, Jay, let's go ahead and just move on to our next subject here.
Yeah,
How's
see
that
what I did
sound?
there? Hey.
It was planned.
And we want to show some love for the Cheese Grater Mac Pro. And we're going to post
On
some
mine right
resources
now.
here. Yep.
And because that topic still comes up once in a while, the C in C Mac Pro does not stand for cheese grater.
Nope.
It stands for classic.
Same thing.
The
All right,
Mac
first-
Pro aficionados know that.
Yeah. All right. First little link we found. We found a couple of different links. Jay and I both. He found one for the CPUs. I found one for the GPUs. Basically in the same forum, as a matter of fact. Here's the first link. I just posted it in the chat here for you guys. That actually shows all the compatibility, CPU compatibilities for all the Mac Pros. Very, very good resource to use there if you want to find, something to replace the CPU that you have in your current Mac Pro.
Oh yeah, it's a very useful page. I've actually looked at it many times when I was planning upgrades and stuff, and well, I never got around to doing them. But it's a very useful page.
Well, I mean, I have a 1,1 now that I actually have flashed to 2,1, and I've got a graphics card coming in for it. I'm going to upgrade the graphics and at least get El Capitan working good on it. And I could actually upgrade the CPUs if I want to. They're running a 266 Xeons right now, and I can go up to 3.0 Xeons if I want. And I think on eBay they're selling for about $20 for a pair right now. So
And that's a little off topic here, but the danger of hanging out with us is that you will spend money eventually. 'Cause
yes.
When we met Greg here, he had an iMac and a MacBook Pro, and that was it. And now he's stacking
And he
up
was
excerpts.
He was
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, now I've got a bunch of stuff.
You've got a ton of stuff, GT.
We
Well,
finally converted him to a Mac Pro. It took a while, but we got him there.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's a low end Mac Pro, but hey, it's a Mac Pro.
Not by the time you're done with it.
That's right. I'm going to get it upgraded enough so I can actually use it as a server for my.
You think you're going to beat my 3,1?
Oh no, probably not. But I mean, I just bought a new graphics card for it. I think I paid on eBay. It was $20 for, and that's the best one. In fact, speaking of that, I'm going to go ahead and post this next link. The next link is for GPUs in your Mac Pro. And this basically, they have recommendations for each type of graphics card that works in best in each Mac Pro. And I actually got the best one that will work in my Mac Pro.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a very comprehensive list, but I should mention that a few people have pointed out that when it comes to the power requirements listed for a lot of that stuff,
they're a
the
little
guy
off.
the guy that made the list is a little off. But hey, just do a pixelless mod and you're good either way.
Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
Now,
I mean,
I want to qualify your best card for the
without doing a
111 Mac Pro.
pixelless mod. Without doing a pixelless mod.
And without losing the fact that isn't that card also a boot screen compatible or something like that?
Yes, it is. Actually, they made Mac cards. In fact, there's some they sell on eBay, the same exact card that have the mini display port.
Okay.
And
I just want to qualify that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
because technically the 970 or 980 would be the best card you could shove in that.
But I'd have to flash it and do all other kind of stuff. I'm working my way up, okay? I'm taking baby steps. But anyways, this for the GPUs, there's a lot of good information in there, and it actually tells you which cards need to be flashed, which ones that, and where do you go to get the flashing information. I mean, there's all kind of good information in that one.
I do not recommend flashing, by the way. I want that noted.
Why not?
Well,
the reason I don't recommend it is because you run into an issue where, let's say the card works fine in the PC mode. All you're trying to get is the boot screen. And honestly, boot screen is kind of a null issue. It's just a, let's call it, I mean, it's what do they call that? First world problem issue.
Hey, I want to see that Apple logo, okay?
You still
I want to choose my partition.
But you can choose that without having to have the boot screen. There's ways around that. But
I know.
The thing
you can always use a secondary card to do it.
There you go.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
The reality is you flash a card, you're running up into a realm of most people do not write the firmware themselves. So they cannot actually, if something goes wrong, doesn't go right, you don't get all the features and whatever, they can't change it. You actually need to be the one writing that firmware. And there's a very few cards that are directly one-to-one flash over and it's going to work in the PCI Express category. Yeah. So it's just better, leave it as it is. If you run a PC card, run a PC card, don't flash it.
There is so many different versions of the same card out there by many different manufacturers. I once flashed a card. It was 4870. The guy on the forum page said that this was the specific card, and apparently I had a separate revision of it. It did flash. I got the boot screen, but the fan control was all screwed up. It would always overheat, and it actually screwed up PC mode, so I couldn't go into boot camp anymore.
Yep.
And so basically the best thing to do and the cheapest thing to do, unless you're having it done, having a professionally flashed card,
even then I don't
recommend it. Which is also extremely expensive.
Yeah.
But still, the best thing to do is to have the PC card and the original secondary card for the boot screen if you want a boot screen. And it's best to have a single slot card for that so you don't have to worry about extra power and stuff. Yeah, like that. The 2600 XT.
The original card that came in.
That's the perfect card for it. You know.
Yep. Well, speaking of, with GPUs and stuff, some of the GPUs require a little bit more power than what the actual Mac the Pro can actually supply, especially from the logic board. So the next link I'm posting in here, and I'm going to throw this over to Jay, is the Pixelless mod, which, he has all about it on the House of Moss.
Why me? I'm busy.
It's your thing.
Yeah, it's and this has been a controversial topic for a very long time, and has been reignited in the last few days. I'm trying to pull up the post now to see this dude's name, but yeah, some people believe that the mini 6-pin ports on a Mac Pro logic board can only crank out up to 75 watts of power. So if you use a conversion from mini 6-pin to 8-pin, or draw power to a card that requires more than 75 watts on those ports, you can fry the traces in your board. Now, there is a guy on Mac Pro users group, and because Facebook is so great at sorting stuff, I can find it. Oh, his name is Brennan Ferguson. I don't know him. I just saw his video. He did a test, and he says, what did he say? That the mini 6-pin ports can crank out up to 120 watts. Now, I haven't looked into this claim. I got my information from Gianluca. Forgot his last name. Back in the day, so that's what I always stuck with: 75 watts, and that's it. Based more on the amount of people that were putting more powerful cards in and were experiencing power-related issues than the actual math that went into this. So it might be that the ports can handle 120 watts opposed to 75. I have not tested this. I have not verified it. But I personally still do the Pixelus mod on all my Mac Pros. Because it might be good for the card I have now, but what if I want to put in a Radeon 7 or a Titan?
Jay, also, here's a question for you, too. Is when you do if you want to use it off the board, I mean, the board has traces on there, which are not as thick wires as what your power supply has. So, you know, you got to look at amperage coming across those those traces. And that is where you can burn up a trace on a logic board. And if you do that on your logic board, guess what? Basically, the whole logic board is might as well just toss it.
Yeah, that's my reasoning behind it. The gauge of wire that I use in the Pixelus mod is so much greater or smaller. I think gauge smaller number is higher, thicker wire, right?
No, gauge.
The smaller number is thicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I use, I think, 14 or 18 gauge wire to do my Pixelus mod.
Yeah.
The trace in the board is
not
like,
even
it's like
not even
hair.
Yeah, it's not even probably 50 gauge or something.
It's not even if that port can handle 120 watts. Let's say let's go with that. There is such a thing as electromigration, and think of it the same as sand being moved down a river over time. The same way the copper is going to get moved in a trace or a wire over time, and you're going to get cracks and you're going to get breaks, and the harder you push that trace, the sooner it's going to wear out. And because Apple wanted to do everything the pretty way and built those traces into the board instead of having a power cable for your graphics card, that is now, in the long run, that's a weak spot in your Mac Pro board.
So, are we sure that was the pretty way and not the let's force people into upgrading way?
No, it's the pretty way.
But Johnny Ives, it's probably the pretty way. But yeah, I bypass that port. Unless I run the stock card, I don't have an issue with that. But as soon as I start upgrading cards, I do the Pixelus mod. It's $20 for the cable. Unless you want to make the cable yourself, that's also very possible. And now, you can put in any card you want.
Yeah, the card I'm getting is basically the one that it's rated for this, and I actually have the cable sitting right here that I'm going to use, and this is a 6-pin to 6-pin, So this should work fine for my purposes. Now, if I put something more higher power in, like Rocky was saying, then yes, I will probably do the Pixelus mod and, get the power off of the actual power supply versus the board. But for right now,
as soon as you start dealing with an 8-pin connector, 1 or 2, go Pixelus. And there's people, Pixelus mod is bull.
If you just have one and no other 6 pins, you can just use a 2.6 to 1.8 adapter. It'd be totally.
I agree.
But you cannot. You do not control which port on the graphics card is going to pull the most power.
Because you can use. They make little devices for this, and it's I believe EVGA is the big one that makes them. It's a power balancer board, and what it does is it regulates the power to make sure that an equal amount of power goes over those pins to the board. So you can run a 6 to an 8. It will power balance, and it won't burn your board out.
Can you find a link to that? Because I would like to put that in the description, because I've never heard of that.
I just have to find it.
But here's another problem with that, though, okay? You're talking about especially what Greg just said, about a 6-pin to 8-pin, cable.
Double 6-pin to 1 8-pin.
Okay. Well, double six, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
But if you do
Yes.
some of those cables, I've seen people do where they do a 6-pin and they have the little connector that goes on the side. All you're
Don't
doing is
ever do
drawing
that.
more amperage on those 2 pins, because basically you're just taking 2 of the pins off, and it's basically making a U and going to the next 2 pins. So
You're running a lot of amperage over one cable or 2 cables.
exactly, and I do not recommend doing that at all.
And there's even people that are against the Pixels mod just because why not? They say, no, you should draw your power from a SATA port, or that is ridiculous. Why would you sacrifice one or two hard drive bays to power a graphics card when you could just do the Pixels mod?
Plus,
That doesn't make
I think
sense.
maxes out at maybe 70 watts, if that. It doesn't.
I wouldn't.
It's a low. I originally suggested that as a way to do it in one of my previous videos.
And then somebody slapped you upside the head and said no.
Well, no, it's still a viable way to do it, but there's still a good chance you can blow a hole through your SATA port. So
Yeah, and if you bust the SATA controller, you lose all your drives.
yeah,
It's not the
just the
controller, it's just the power connector for it.
But you can lose power to all your connectors, I think. That's what Jay's trying to say.
It's the same cable.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah. And with no power to your drive, you got no drive.
Yeah.
What, you need power for that? Come on, what's wrong with you?
All right.
And finally, there is or not finally, but there is a guide.
Yeah,
This is coming from a user, Greg Grant. He posted it on, I think, Mac Pro Upgrade or
I just
Mac
posted
Pro
it that way.
users. Thanks. I'm not sure. He may have posted on both. He did a lot of work consolidating information on how to upgrade your Mac Pro, and from Pixels mod to hard drive to graphics to optical, everything you want is in that guide. So Greg just put a link in the chat. If you have a Mac Pro that you want to upgrade, definitely check that guide out.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, some of the other resources are on Facebook. Mac Pro Upgrade group, Mac Pro Users group. There's 2 separate groups. One's about upgrading, and the other one's just basically, talking about Mac Pros and stuff. And then YouTube, our own Greg Rutke, has a whole Mac Pro series, and I actually watched a couple of his videos to help me with my new acquired Mac Pro.
Yeah, and Season 1 is mostly focused on the first and second generation. Season 2 sort of focuses on the third. And Season 3 currently mostly focuses on the fourth and fifth. But it does actually cover all of them, whatnot. You just have to kind of read the titles and figure it out on your own.
Thanks for those links, because you didn't have them in the document there. So, but anyways, that's pretty much a lot of resources we found. All this stuff will be in the description below once we get done with the video. We'll make sure all you guys have that. And but these are some we found these just last week, and we were actually amazed at some of the stuff that was in these. Some of the Mac Rumors forums are really good at finding stuff.
Well, the CPU one I could have showed you guys a long time ago.
Well, I knew of the CPU one, but the GPU one was new to me.
Yeah, and I found that one, and I showed you guys.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of projects that I want to do, but don't have the time or resources for. So I really appreciate the people that do go through all the effort to make this happen, because it's a lot of work, definitely.
So, all right, I guess we can move on to our next topic here. One of the things we were talking about, and Jay brought this up. This is probably going to be a quick topic, but do you have the blues? Does anybody use that blue light filter on their iPod or not iPod, but iPad, iPhone? I think even Mac. The Mac actually has it now too. Yeah. At least the Retina ones, right?
Night Shift.
Yeah.
I use Night Shift, except I can't use it in 1013 because Colin's patch broke it.
Did we just lose a bunch of people?
No. We lost Steve. Steve said he was going to be right back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, Colin's patch, if you run it a few times, a patcher should fix it.
Okay,
But
I'll fix that. But yeah, I run it otherwise.
Yeah,
Well, I
'cause
do
I'm
too.
running it on mine too, on 10.13. It's just the patcher. I don't understand why Apple only restricted it all to just Retinas, basically anything made after 2012.
Innovation.
You can have night shift, but every Mac on Earth can basically run a yellow filter for your screen. So a quick little patch, and presto, you have night shift on your unsupported Mac.
Well, didn't they have an app that came out way before that Apple did it, where
Flux.
yeah, that actually did
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
And still does it, and much better than Night Shift too. When we put this topic on the list for the show, because I must admit I disable it every night because it actually works. When my screen starts dimming, by the time I hit 11 p.m., I am yawning. I am like, yeah, I'm going to bed because it's actually working.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to keep you up.
I turn it when I start fading. I'm sitting at 11 o'clock. I got like 5 hours of playtime. Turn it off, get the brightness back, and then I keep going because it actually works. And the science behind it is sound. I could put some links in the description when it's all done.
Mm-hmm.
The science behind it is sound, and there's a very good reason that Apple ripped it off from F.Lux, who has been trying to get in the App Store for years, but Apple blocked them. And when Night Shift was released, we figured out why they kept blocking them, because they stole the feature. But yeah, filtering out blue lights, I do it especially on my phone, where all I have is Night Shift. It's not as good as F.Lux. But, I like to read some articles and stuff when I'm in bed, and I don't want that full brightness in my face. So I use it on my phone a lot, and on my Mac only when I really have to go to bed on time.
Well, I use it on my iPad all the time. And when it first came out and I first started, I noticed a big difference. You could see the difference. But after about a year or two of using it, I don't even notice the difference anymore. I don't even notice when it changes because basically it'll do it right at a certain time. I have it set for, I think, 10:30 or 11. I can't remember what time I have it set for. But when it does it, I don't even notice it now. So it's so subtle. But like Jay said, yeah, you start yawning, you get tired, and it works.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how well it works.
I see what you're saying about the getting tired and stuff like that. I mean, I use two different lights in my room during the day when I am blocking out the sun from turning my room into an oven. I actually run a blue light based, or what they call daytime light based LED lamp in my room light. And then I have an overhead light that, like you see right now, I don't know if anybody notices it, but it actually runs on a warm filter, which is similar to the day night shift that you can do on the phone. So it's the same kind of deal, and it shifts it to a warmer tone, which would be more reminiscent of, let's say, firelight or something like that, that would prepare you for bed, quote unquote. It is softer, it's nicer. I like it on my displays. I notice the difference because Windows has it and it works right now, but Mac OS doesn't have it anymore until I fix it. Thank you, Greg. And
we can get Mojave.
I am not putting Mojave on here.
You will.
No, I will not. Not until I get a card that's capable, which will be never. Unless they allow, the drivers for newer NVIDIA cards. So I'm not going to jump over to AMD right now.
The 680 or any
but
would work.
I don't want one of those. But yeah, I want to go with Maxwell or better. So that's just personal preference. But so once I get Night Shift working again on my Mac OS, I mean, I do notice the difference. I like it. It doesn't necessarily make me as tired, but what it does do is it doesn't burn my eyes if I'm running it without a light on in my room when I'm trying to do something on the computer at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to controls, though, if you use Night Shift and you were not aware of the alternative, the original F.Lux, I put a link in the chat. Check it out because you can set it. There's much more control to it.
It's been around since the PowerPC days.
Yeah, I've been using it forever. And, you can set per app preferences. For example, Wendy that was on earlier, she uses it, but when she goes to Illustrator or InDesign where she needs color accuracy, it disables itself. It finds out in the background which app you're running, disables it, and when you leave the app, it switches on again.
That's cool. I
When
didn't even know that.
you start VLC or QuickTime, it says, "Hey, you're watching a movie. You probably don't want everything to be red. Let me tone it down. Instead of turning it off, I'll tone it down." It's very intelligent software, and it does a really good job. And like I said a few times, Apple stole this from them. So
And
go
it
with the
doesn't
guys that
work
made it.
like that. And it doesn't work exactly how you just described it.
Right. No, it doesn't. It's a generalizer.
One of the biggest jailbreak tweaks ever on iOS was Flux, because people just liked it, and there was so much controversy. Excuse me. There was so much controversy because of them introducing Night Shift. After the millionth time they blocked them from the App Store and stuff. And it's a very interesting story if you ever look up Flux and Night Shift on the jailbreaking scene and stuff. Even today, Flux still has a slight market in the jailbreaking scene because it's still better.
I believe it. And I might actually check it out. Because, like we said 2 episodes ago, or maybe even more, I don't jailbreak. The only time I ever jailbroke was to get FaceTime over LTE or 4G. But if there really is a f.lux for jailbreak available, I might actually have to go check that out. So, and like Wendy said, when you switch between apps too much, it is like working a disco. It'll keep on, off. So.
Yeah, I just leave the iOS thing on, and it doesn't really bother me. But I hear it's not as, and you probably already covered it. It's not as comprehensive as the other.
We just talked about this. You can't just come back and jump in the
I'll stop there. I had to reboot my darn Apple router, so there you go.
Ooh. Get you a TP link.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic here. I think we kind of beat the night shift into the ground a little bit.
The dead night shift.
But I'm going to throw this over to Rocky. Rocky, it's all on you. What is the Mount Olympus Challenge, and who's the winners of the week?
Well, we all know what the Mount Olympus Challenge is. It is the... What? Are you kidding? Were you not here last week?
We might have some new users that don't know.
In fact, I never finished last week's video.
You punk. Well, the Mount Olympus Challenge is basically where we have the gladiators of the Mac world. We're telling everybody, hey, bring your Mac, do some tests. It's all outlined in our Discord. I will, at some point, link it. Give me just a second here, and I'll add the link into the thing. Of course, Discord's being weird to me. I'll put our Discord in the link because we do want people to participate. Unlike other groups, which actually try to charge for getting on their Discord, we don't charge yet.
Really?
So get in there while it's free.
Charge for that?
No, don't say yet.
Oh, they do. They
yet.
do. Hey, if we don't say yet, people won't try to jump on it because it's free now.
Let me change my Discord real quickly to paid model here.
Exactly. So on our free Discord, which we all encourage you to, join, we are having a competition, and it is ongoing. And we call it the Mount Olympus Challenge. And in the Mount Olympus Challenge, currently we have, excuse me here, I've been sitting here trying to do all this stuff, so I need to pull up my listing again.
I would put you on the spot, see?
Yeah, I know. I wasn't ready for it. God.
Dude, you had an hour and a half.
I've got it all typed up right here. I just didn't have the window pulled up because I was pulling the other crap up because y'all wanted something to do with EVG. Okay. So, let me get into it here. All right. So this week's winners of titles, the title holders. All right. I will give it to Jake. He tried to make a play with his Vader Vader is in the running, his iGladiator in the field for Team Ares, which happens to be our Hackintosh team. He is making a strong play. He's coming up in the Unigine Haven at 1,434 at 50 frames per second. However, even though he made a strong play for Team Ares, he did not take the gold. No, I take it back. He did take the gold in Unigine. He didn't take the gold in the overall King of Olympus, which actually, despite the fact that Jay's machine did not complete the Heaven demo, he actually took the gold for King of Olympus. So he holds the overall title.
So
Yeah.
how can he get a title if he couldn't run one of the
I
benchmarks?
actually sat here.
My other results were so good that
They
it's not
were.
even.
They were,
that
believe it or not. I did the math.
recount.
But I would
did the
say
count.
that if Greg runs his Mac Pro, because you put dual 33s
Not
in there,
yet.
right? Oh, okay.
Not
Then
yet.
yeah, your machine is still
My
subpar.
system's still
But
broken.
There you go.
but yeah,
But I did run GT. Okay, GT made a showing at all 5 of his scores. He came in at 22,013. And Jay came in with only 4 scores divided by 5. He came in at 28,902.
Okay, but that's what
Wow.
that's what 12 cores versus 4.
Yeah, well, you still lost. So, and that's including the computation and everything, which both of those are unfortunately AMD cards to my unfortunate naming. Though I have a feeling because Jake, he missed one of the benchmarks. He did not do the computation benchmark. Had he done that, I believe Vader could still take the title holder right now from Jay for King of Olympus with his Hackintosh because he has
that
a
ain't
much
happening.
far superior.
That ain't happening.
I
There's
predict it.
no.
I predict it.
There's no taking the title from a real
Next
Mac
week.
by a fake Mac. Those are different categories.
No, it's a Hackintosh. It still runs Mac OS, and that's our category. So, coming in for the Cinemensch, top of the line, unfortunately, we have to also hand this to Jay at 3,051. And at a close second was the Vader machine or the Vader iGladiator by Jake. Oh, he beat you out there, Greg. You got a long way to run on that one. At
I bet if I get my
2,971.
system running properly.
Well, you better do
Properly.
it then. You got some scores, and we got other people that need to get in on this competition
I'm
because
trying.
at the same thing.
Any Mac that has an upgraded, because I still run the stock processors, a slightly upgraded GPU from
That's
stock.
what I'm running, stock processor and stock GPU.
If anyone comes around with a 12-core Mac Pro that's 3.33 or 3.46, they will blow me out of the freaking water.
They're going to have a good GPU, though, because you still took it in the Geekbench. No, you better be pulling out an NVIDIA. But in Geekbench, which is 3 scores, we have computation, we have single CPU and multi-core CPU that are actually factored in, all 3 and divided by 3. Jay came out once again as the Hercules at 47,154. So Jay is proving a stock Mac Pro can destroy the competition because our number
what model this
2.
is?
Do what?
This is a mid
what model was this?
2012.
Oh, 2012. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. You want to announce your model, Jay? Because you are, right now, the king of Olympus. So, what is your gladiator that you have not named?
I haven't named this computer. It is a Mac Pro server, mid 2012, dual 3.06 12 core, 64 gigs of RAM, PCI SSD, and an AMD Radeon R9 280X with 3 gigs. So
We need somebody to dethrone.
to do. Huh?
We need somebody to dethrone you. Somebody's got to pull it out there.
And it cannot be a Hackintosh. I am against
Yes, it can.
Hackintosh.
It can be a Hackintosh.
I agree with Jay. I think Hackintoshes should be like, that's a PC. That's what that is.
You're just mad because they can beat you. But
No.
here's the fun. Now let's get into some lower. I'm getting some calls. Hold on. But the fun is
someone didn't
Aphrodite.
put this do not disturb on because I forgot to
Yeah, but my daughter's at a track competition, so I have to let that go. But Aphrodite category, which I think is the most fun. Aphrodite is our power PCs. So in Team Aphrodite, even though I took the win, yay, with my 2.3 gigahertz 2005, Power Mac in there. And we still can't figure out at this point why the Gladiator number 2, which actually is for Nick, he has also the same exact G5, except I'm running 800 megahertz RAM and higher speed drives. His actually comes in about at half where mine does. But
I need to
we
run some
have.
benchmarks.
I need to run some on my G5.
Yeah,
too.
there you go. You better. Why didn't you run yours? Okay, so you can talk about that next week. But here's the
I didn't
deal.
even know the stuff existed until tonight.
Oh, well,
Whose fault is that?
Yeah, exactly. So we have to announce our bottom of the rank this week. Our gladiator who walked the competition, who definitely gave it a good go at over 2.5 hours, came in at 150 Geekbench score. Our
Drum roll.
Misaki, from the House of James here, he submitted Masaki, who is an iBook G3 SE Graphite and running 10411 366 megahertz with 320 megabytes of RAM at 150 Geekbench. Way to go.
That
Wow.
is impressive all on its own.
I have a 466 special edition clamshell iBook. I'll have to run
I
that.
wanna see.
Let's see.
Ooh,
I
want to
was
see.
really,
Hopefully,
I
you
was
got 2
really
hours to
trying.
waste.
I have
2.5.
That's,
Hey,
I
it's
have a
what we were
100
talking
hertz
about
266 watt.
last week.
I want to run it on.
I want to find the Mac that can score a 1 on Geekbench. I want to find that.
There you
computer.
go.
Well,
the
it's
problem
based on
is
if you get a
OS
1,
10
that should be a G5, right? The original G5
No,
that
that's
came
a
out.
that's
G5 is
a,
a
a
1000.
1000.
Oh, 1,000. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, the problem is OS 10. You need Tiger or later to run version of Geekbench too. Because what I was doing is I have my Power Center Pro Mac clone by Power Computing, and it's originally had a 180 megahertz processor. Well, I upgraded that to a G5 G3 processor. G3 500 megahertz processor, and I shoved in a bunch of memory into it, but I can't get OS 10 booted on there currently. So I did my best here, but I couldn't get that started just to try and run the Geekbench software. So I don't know what system would be the lowest. It would probably be whatever the lowest requirements are for Tiger,
Well,
especially if you have to hack a machine to run it. But
you can hack Tiger. I've read this online. I've never tried it because I only have one system that could possibly do it, and that would need some hacking also. You can hack it to run on 604Es.
yeah, so that's another thing to try, but but I had enough
Try
trouble.
on your 9600. I'm sure you could get it to go.
Well, see, that's the thing. The power center is very similar to the 9600. So I put in a
yeah, but
G3
it's
card.
a clone machine.
All right.
You know how
Time
Apple
to
was
stop
trying to lock
talking
them out.
and start doing some benchmarks.
Same deal. Same type of board.
Yeah, but if he starts the benchmark now, it'll still be running by the time we get here next week for Mac.
Next
Exactly.
Christmas.
Yeah, that's his problem.
Yes,
All right,
I'll
guys.
try.
So that is our weekly Mount Olympus challenge. So hopefully you guys can get in there into the Discord and get those benchmarks flying. And,
Oh, yes, please.
Get them posted in there. There is a template on how Rocky wants them posted.
It's just very simple. If you got questions, be more than happy to answer them for you. I'm more than happy to do what I can.
Yep. All right, guys, we're going to move over to our news and rumors. We didn't have anything scheduled, but we did find something at the last minute here. I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the chat here. But the House of Representatives, if it posts, come on, damn it. There we go. The House of Representatives, I think it was today, passed
yesterday.
or yesterday. They actually passed the new a new bill. Basically, it's the new version of the net neutrality.
It's restoring the power.
It's called Save the Internet. Yeah, it's called Save the Internet Act, HR 1644, and in a vote of 232 to 190. So they passed it. Now, what does this mean? Really nothing, because guess what? It's probably not going to get past the Senate, and it definitely is not going to. The president's not going to sign it.
But it does show, as we brought up last week or the week before, that if enough people are aware enough to complain and to write and to call their representatives, we might actually
get this done.
Yeah, I was one of the first, I think, 1,000 and something signatures on the bill a few years ago. The petition for the to keep jailbreaking legal thing that happened.
You talk about the digital. What would they call that? I remember what you're talking about, but I can't remember the exact name.
I can't remember what it's called anymore, but. Obama signed that into law about a year after I signed that petition. If people
probably
keep talking
because
about
you signed it.
Huh?
Probably because you signed it. He saw your name.
Yeah,
He's like, this good.
Oh, Greg Rutke. Oh man, I better pass this.
As long as people know about it and are talking about it, the government will listen.
Yeah, and usually when the FCC has a rulemaking come up, you can actually go to the FCC wireless website. They actually have a where you can actually look up rulemakings and you can actually comment on them. Okay, I've done several I'm a ham radio operator, and I've done several of them for ham radio stuff. Okay, where I was actually fighting the ARRL, which is our ham version of like an Apple group or something, but it's for ham radio. They were wanting one thing, and I was like, wait a second, this is going to screw up ham radio. And so I wrote a nice long thing, and you can write a long explanation. Now, is the FCC going to look at it? Probably not, because they get thousands and thousands of these things. So they would have to have somebody sitting there reading every last one of these. But like Greg said, go in and sign these petitions. We got to get these lawmakers to pass this back, because it's already happening where the ISPs are throttling and blocking stuff that they don't think that you should see. Whereas you as the user should be able to view whatever you want to view on the internet.
Yeah. So even if you're not into politics and all you want to do is watch movies or whatever you're into online, this is going to affect you. So just
Let's see. Put it this way: politics-wise, I probably disagree with everybody here, but for this reason, I agree with everybody here. Just to let you know, Yeah. No, I'm dead serious.
Yeah, it's like, wasn't there an article recently that said that now ISPs can block whatever service they want as long as they disclose?
Yes, we talked about that last week on
that was even the FCC even cares. They don't care.
That was overturned?
That was overturned yesterday by the House of Representatives, but it still has to go to the Senate, where it can still
and the president. It has to actually go through two more steps, which, to be honest with you, I don't want to get too far into politics, but with the Republican-controlled Senate, it's not going to get through.
Yeah, but
I think you need to send letters to your representatives and make sure that they know you want this to pass. Tell all your friends, tell everybody you want net neutrality.
Yeah, post a Facebook post, share it far and wide. The only reason this is coming up is because you're loud enough about it.
Now, this is not called net neutrality anymore. It's called Save the Internet Act. So remember that. Save the Internet Act. That's the new name of it, okay? But it's basically the same exact thing.
Unless you like the government regulating what you can and cannot see, like North Korea, you want this to be controlled. Or even the telecom companies, any of the companies that are hosting internet, you don't want them to regulate what you can and cannot do on the internet. Like you can't torrent, you can't whatever.
Yeah, basically what this law does and what net neutrality did is it treats ISPs like utilities. In other words, they provide a service, a pipe, and what you do on that pipe is your business. Okay. But right now, the way it is that, yes, they provide the pipe, but guess what? They're controlling what you can do on that by throttling and doing other things. So if you like watching those Netflix movies, be prepared to start seeing the buffering because they're going to start doing that.
Yeah, and we can make that
unless you
problem
pay a
go
special
away for an
subscription for
extra.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Or if you want to go look at Facebook, watch videos on Facebook or YouTube even. Watching us could be problems,
Yeah.
Yep.
So get out there and
Download
tell
your favorite.
people. I mean, that's something we need to start spreading, to all your friends and stuff and get this out and have it. We need to get it fixed.
Well, a perfect example is we have to use the Apple File Share Protocol to host a lot of the PowerPC Gaming Lounge copies of the games and stuff to be able to get people on there and game and whatnot for UTO 499, Quake, etc. We have to host it that way because they throttle that stuff.
And they also red flag them, even though it's now,
Yep.
my mind's going blank on what it's called.
You like
Abandonware.
Macintosh Garden?
Yeah.
You want net neutrality.
Yep.
And
So
you definitely
anyways,
don't
guys,
want what Europe implemented.
well, we talked about that last week, so we won't get into that one anytime soon. All right, so let's go on to our next subject here. Rocky's Gaming
Shit.
Corner, or Evil Mod Gaming. So
Sorry,
it's on.
I let it slip. I'm in the car at the moment. Sorry if I break out.
Okay, you want us to come back to this, or?
No, it's cool. It'll probably be better now because I'm going to lose battery life and I need to save some battery when I get up towards Wichita. I have to go pick up my daughter in the middle of town. So.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm showing your preview here real quick. So go ahead and talk about it.
Creativerse, the new game. I cannot see what the content creator is. I believe I have it in one of my documents. Sorry about that. There, you can look it up on Steam as to who the creator is. The link will be down there in the description. Normally, I would be pasting links. Unfortunately, I'm in my car at the moment.
I put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you. And basically, Creativerse. Are you switching over to the video, or are you just on the preview at the moment?
I'm on the video right now.
Okay, so basically, Creativerse is very similar to Minecraft, except the bonus is it actually has better graphics, acceleration, etc. It doesn't run as hoggish as the Java version, which is what is released by Mojang for Minecraft. And you have a actual character that isn't rendered in block form, along with other different aspects like different animals, creatures, etc. are also rendered in more of a creature form instead of being in block form. I rate it 5 out of 5 score on the Mac Puck Mouse rating system that we currently use. So it's a very good game. It doesn't take a lot of hardware to run it. You can run it on, if you don't mind showing, I don't know if the video's over or not, or yet. But
No, it's still running.
Okay.
I'm looking at some kind of weird Pikachu thing.
Yeah, you can actually tame critters.
And I'm showing the requirements now.
Yeah, you can. You can tame creatures, etc. You can do actually about as much, if not more, than you can do in Minecraft. Now, the system requirements go down into Intel HD graphics, so it doesn't require a huge machine to run. They do prefer i5 or better dual core. Now, I ran it on a 8-core Mac Pro and actually recorded the video for it. So it runs very well, and I only ran a 750 Ti, and I ran it on pretty high settings at 1080p, recorded it in 720p, 60 frames per second. It's a very good game. It runs very well, and it's free to play. You don't actually have to pay to play it.
Raptor wants to know if it's PPC compatible.
It is not.
Nick,
Unlike Minecraft, it doesn't
Nick.
have a PowerPC version. Unfortunately. But,
Okay.
yep. So that's that. So I'm probably going to pop off here in a second, though. Sorry.
All right, not a problem. We're going to go ahead
It
and move
looks
along.
basically like the system requirements are as long as you're running a mid 2012 or later Mac, you can run it.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. And it runs very, very well.
Okay, we're going to move along to Steve's archive corner. Steve, around? Yeah, there he is.
Hey. Yeah, so I figured out something interesting. So I'm doing a video about the Performa series of computers, and these are basically like the old LC models. If I get the camera here attached, there we go. And so, oh, that's why my camera is not the right one. There we go. That helps solve it now, doesn't it? So wait, no, maybe. Jeez. All right, FaceTime says it's using the camera, but it's not. Let me try switching
Amateur.
It's there we go. Okay, so
There we go.
I have an LC2 here, which is basically the same as a Performa, just different name. But what I found interesting is when these machines shipped, they had bundled software if it was a Performa model because they were trying to give you, some value for your dollar, and they were trying to bundle these systems with a monitor and a modem and stuff like that. So a lot of these systems had software that was bundled, like Microsoft Works or Word or WordPerfect. A lot of games too, Spectre, Challenger, and Math Blaster, and the kids' games and stuff like that, educational titles. But what was interesting is a lot of those titles were either demos or trials or limited editions that actually differed from the physical release that you could purchase in the store. Now, what's interesting about this is these machines, as you could tell, only have a floppy disk drive. So how are you supposed to, reinstall the operating system? Well, unfortunately, Apple didn't really think much other than the operating system when they were talking about the media that they include with your computer. So they would give you a set of set of floppy disks rather instead of a set of CDs, because these models only had a floppy disk drive. So all that bundled software only came installed on the hard drive. And so you didn't get a backup copy of it. But what Apple did do is they had this program called Backup, and you were supposed to back up your entire hard drive on whatever medium you saw fit, which was floppy disk. So imagine you have an 80 megabyte hard drive or higher, and you wanted to back up your system. Well, be prepared to get 50 to 100 floppy disks and be prepared for a long, long time of, inserting the disk into your machine, waiting for it to copy, and spitting it back out. So the
Well, if
problem
someone is
is
willing to wait 2 hours on a Geekbench, surely you can
exactly.
wait a month on a backup, right?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, not a lot of people ever did this. Nobody backed up their Performa from the original factory condition. And because of that, a lot of these software bundles are basically lost to time. So all these software bundles that had these limited edition or trialware software and games and stuff, they're basically gone. I mean, I'm sure there's a CD-ROM from Apple support that had some of this stuff on it. I didn't see it on Macintosh Garden. I saw a big thread on there of people looking for this stuff, begging and
Apple
pleading.
Legacy.
No, that's the thing that get a little tricky. People say, "Oh, it's on the Apple Legacy stuff." Only the Apple stuff's there. You won't find the games or the software that Apple didn't make that they were bundling onto these machines. So the Apple Legacy is great for the operating system and some Apple utilities and stuff. But, to get Microsoft Works or WordPerfect or those things, it's not there. So I did find that I have one Performa that sort of still had the original software on it. So I will be backing that up. But in part of this segment, just wanted to make a little plea here that if you have a Performa series, like a Performa 400 or a 430 or something like that, and you still have the hard drive and you think the software is on there, try backing it up and remove any personal data, but try sharing it, because some of that stuff is unique, and it would be a shame if this stuff would just disappear. And if you find one of those resource CDs with the original install on it, don't keep that to yourself either. But I'm doing a little video about these Performas. Should be out in a few days. And I touch on the subject a little bit, but they're interesting machines, and although they have a different name, they're basically an LC. But not a bad Macintosh if it was your first computer. So that's really all I have to say.
If I can
right.
ever find the 120 discs that were used to back up the LC3 Plus I had, I will
So you
definitely be
actually
adding
did
that.
that. You
Yeah,
actually did
well,
that.
I didn't do it. My stepmom did.
That is awesome. See, that takes patience right there. Yeah, if you find that, I mean, if the discs are still good, that's the other thing these days. Even you find a backup, but
Yeah.
that'll be awesome, man.
If I can find it, that's the thing.
All right, guys. Since we don't have Mike tonight, so we won't be doing the Mike's Mac Shack tonight. He is not feeling too well. He's under the weather a little bit, so we hope Mike is feeling a lot better. Hopefully, he's watching us. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully, he's feeling better. Anyways, the next and very last segment tonight, and it's our favorite one, I think. What were they smoking? All right, this one actually came, and I'm going to post a link here. So if you want to go to that link right there, did it post or did I post the wrong one? Hold on a second. It didn't post. Post the wrong one. Anyways, yeah. Let me pull this back up. There we go. All right, there's the link right there. We got a Facebook article, and it came up, and he copied some of the stuff he saw on his eBay listing. Okay. And he basically said, here's my beloved MacBook Pro, the best model ever made, the late 2011. And what did we say about the 2011s earlier today?
Definitely not the best model ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something
2011
about a GPU issue.
Yeah.
And,
17-inch with fully loaded upgrades, 2 terabyte Seagate CUDA SSHD, 4 gigabytes of RAM, which it could go more than that, but that's not maxed out. Upgradable to 16, but we know it could do what, 32, I think?
No, it's 16, I think.
Is it 16? Okay.
Yeah.
16 officially, 32. Some people have occasionally reported, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Basically, he says it's Intel and AMD graphics chips working fine. So this one hasn't had the graphics chip failure yet.
Yet,
that's what I said. Yet. Okay. It has an Intel i7 2.4 gigahertz processor. Now, here's where the catch comes in. This unit, cosmetic condition, is 9.9 out of 10. It's mint. That's what he said in his post. But then he goes right next to that, comma, maybe one tiny mark or two on the back, but screen, body, keyboard all look brand new. Comes with rubber keyboard protector. Everything on this computer works great, including the graphics card switching. It's running El Capitan OS, super quick, fast, keeps up with all modern computers. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. He goes, there is, however, one flaw on this computer. The backlight does not work anymore. I could shine a flashlight on the screen and can see everything but the black in normal light. Good news, it works perfect plugged into any external monitor. Now, this is the reason why we decided to nominate this guy for What Were You Smoking, because I'm sorry, but you cannot say a computer is mint 9.9 out of 10.
Before you say this, GT, we need to clarify the poster on Facebook is not the guy that posted.
No, the poster is not, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm going to post the actual link if you guys want to see the eBay, because it's still up there, actually. It's This is what you're really going to see here in a second. But the guy that posted this, he posted it, and he's the one that actually wrote the little seriously stuff and all the little comments on there. But here is the actual eBay listing. And if you look at this, he wants $1,000 for this computer. Okay? The starting bid is at $599, $600 for a computer that is mint, but the screen doesn't work.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but
some people don't understand that you cannot call something mint and then add a but to it with a list of shit that's wrong with it.
Well, like there's a mark on the bottom, or I'm sorry, but one mark is nowhere near. It's not even near mint. once you
I
get a
use
scratch
near
on it,
mint all the time.
Good condition.
well, I'm
It's like,
surprised you get away with it because
this
some of your stuff
PS3
is.
is mint. The handle is cracked. It's missing a side panel. The hard drive fell out, and it had a little smoke come from it. But it's mint. No,
Yeah.
no.
No, exactly. That is not mint. But the guy, I mean, he wants to buy it now. He's got to buy it now price. Oh, it's only got 2 hours left. You can get it for at least $600. So it's still going on. But I'm willing to bet you he's got a reserve on there, and I'm willing to bet you it's probably not mint.
Yeah.
If he's got to buy it now of 1,000 on there, he is probably wanting way too much more. But when you put something like my beloved iMac, you've got an attachment to that computer that you want way too much money for.
Yeah.
And that's, again, what we call here the eBay effect.
Yep. So, what was he smoking? What are we thinking?
I'm thinking some serious crack.
I think,
I think he may not have been smoking anything. I think he was one of those people that sniffs the Tide Pods or eats them.
No, eats the Tide Pods. There you go.
I'll tell you what he was doing. You know, when you're baking your MacBook in an oven and the alcohol's burning?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what
it
he
had
was
to be
doing.
mint.
The fumes got to his brain.
No, that's a valid point.
Let me show. James just put a link in there, so I'll go ahead and show it. I don't know what it is, but hopefully,
I don't
his
trust it.
response.
When James posts links, I usually don't let it through because I don't trust the guy one bit.
Oh, okay. Well, especially when you can beat him so good on UT, right?
I don't know.
Anyways,
he
guys,
stopped showing up years ago.
but that is our what were they smoking this week? And I think that was a pretty good one because it actually came out. We found out about it on, what was it, Low End Mac?
Yeah, I think so.
That where that original post was. And I actually had to ask the original poster, hey, where's the link to this? So I want to show you guys the eBay posting to know that we aren't faking this stuff. This is actually stuff that's out there, you know. So
Which, by the way, do we have the original poster in our Discord and on MacYak right now? Because that would be awesome.
Don't know.
And if
I
not,
would like,
we need to get him involved.
Yeah, I would like to get him in there. I mean, the original poster was Ashton Elijah. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. But I mean, there was a lot of comments on this one. Actually, there was 45 comments on here, and there was a couple of guys defending the guy. I don't know why.
Probably been baking boards too.
Well,
Yeah, there you
go. You could ask for whatever you want, but
that could be next week's. Just we
Maybe
can only
we're
have there can
smoking
only
something
be
else.
one. There can only be one a week.
Yeah,
What is this,
thank you,
Highlander?
Yes, that's
the
right.
top twit of the week. Yeah.
All right, guys, but we've come to the end of our yak tonight. So if you guys want to continue, some of us may or may not be in the Discord session. I actually have a raid and an excerpt that I'm going to actually be going through, and I'm pretty sure Jay wants to see that too. So, but if you guys do want to join us, we do have a Discord. So you can come hang out with us and chat with us and all kind of other stuff. So come and hang out. Don't be
Join
shy.
the party.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Yeah, it's not just Thursdays. You know, we talk on Discord all the time, and
Oh, heck yeah.
you know, we chose Discord because it's cross-platform. Anyone can join from any device. You know, come check
And
it
it's
out.
free. And it's free.
For now, right?
We're not charging you anything yet.
Not yet. Price goes up next year. Get it while it's hot.
Yeah, when we get like 100,000 subscribers, then we'll probably start charging you guys.
And then we'll start having like in your town.
Yeah. So, guys, any? Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Anytime.
Yep. And guys, we appreciate your views every week. We hope that we see you guys here, but make sure you like and subscribe, both YouTube and Facebook. We do have a Facebook group as well. Like I said, we do have Discord, and you can check out all the descriptions, info, and the links once we get this video done processing and everything. I'm seeing two. Yeah, I'm seeing two exclamation points on mine. So we're probably FaceTime's probably telling us to shut the hell up and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Not
might
yet.
hear a little bit. You might hear a little more colorful language over there. So, all right, guys. So you guys have a good one, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.
See ya.